king spawn opening or the queen spawn opening, or how Kaya predicted, perhaps we might see another 1v3. I'd be surprised if you see another cowboy chess here.
Thank you so much for
Wesley,
coming.
so he starts with white.
Possible, thank you so much.
Ready, set, go. We're off. And it's the finals, the Champions Chess Tour 2023. Glasses off, business time. Wesley, so he's got to choose his first move. Which pawn?
It's the title match. He does adjust Jadoop the king, and it is 1b3. Magnus Carlsen shakes his head. He is surprised. Magnus was not expecting this.
I can't tell if he's more surprised or offended. B3 is not an opening you see at the highest levels of chess, at least not in this time control. You usually see it in blitz chess. But Magnus probably didn't take it so seriously, considering Wesley, he seemed to use it just to get something. But Magnus has not even played his very first move.
Wow, not many people in world chess have the courage to play this type of opening against Magnus Carlsen. Usually they're trying to occupy the center, trying to force the issue. And look at Magnus, he's bemused. He's just shocked here, looking up at the ceiling, just trying to pick how to react to this shock, this surprise. And eventually he plays a bit of copycat, mirror image here. He gets ready to fianchetto black start square bishop, playing at g6, the knight out. And will Wesley take this knight? Big stylistic choice. White is flexible. No, he just pushes a pawn. And, OK, we see the first mind games at work.
And Magnus Carlsen himself has employed 1b3 with the white side. Definitely something that, yes, Wesley won a game against Nordebek Abdusattorov in the semifinals, but nobody could have expected this seriously to happen against. We were talking about this being the anti-young player chess approach in the opening. The guy Wesley's facing right now is not exactly a young player.
Well, you could argue, still be in his prime. And I can't believe that I, of all people, am about to say this. Did Magnus prepare by looking at Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it? The answer is likely no. But Wesley asked the question, what should I do? He posed that question to Fabiano Caruana, and Fabi said the key to playing Magnus, jokingly, is to prepare for and against 1b3. So we have that opening on the board. We're going to have fianchetto from both of Black's bishops on the longest diagonals. And Wesley, he was the first to surprise Magnus. Now he's the one in the think tank. There is no combative play, no tension between pieces just yet.
Yeah. We're going to have a lot of fun from the start. We were discussing whether this will be a cagey start, a more solid approach, but it's clear that Wesley wants to start with energy, in a combative manner, in an unexpected opening approach here. David, what's the best strategy when you're taken by surprise early on? Perhaps Magnus was considering that b3 would be an option, but maybe not taking it that seriously. How do you approach that situation on the board?
Yeah, it feels like there's always two different paths you can take when you're surprised. One, you think, OK, I'm being surprised here. I want to kind of rise to the challenge, fight fire with fire. I'm going to punish my opponent for their temerity in playing such an opening. Or you just think, I want to survive. I want to kind of negotiate the opening, navigate that safely, just get a solid position. As long as I've weathered the initial storm, I will be able to fight on level terms a bit later.
And Robert, what do you think? Is this Magnus taking fire by fire, or just saying, you know what, you got the first surprise in, I'm playing to equalize here?
He's played some feeler moves thus far, but I did see him roll up his sleeves, and so he looks locked in and ready to fight for the center. From the black side, you can always push the c-pawn up 2 squares. In fact, by playing b6 early on, not only are you welcoming a fianchetto light square bishop, but you can fight for the center in this manner using your c-pawn to combat a d-pawn. And Magnus, he delays that choice. He castles kingside. Both players are playing normal moves at this stage. I would say now that the opening surprise is past us and past them, it's about who's about to come up with a plan.
How will black continue the pressure? Will the rooks align? Will black go for those 2 weak white pawns? Isolated pawn on the A file and on the D file should be enough to hold. But it's going to get hairy as both players approach the 1 minute mark. And he jumps in with his knight. Magnus really trying to force the issue. He's just trying to hoover, as I would say, everything off the board, vacuum everything off the board. Second pawn drops, though.
Oh, but look at this. That black rook is in the sights of the white queen. But if you take that rook, the knight jumps out of the way into e3 with check to scoop up that queen. So that was really nice tactical awareness from Magnus Carlsen. He's just trying to liquidate at this stage. He's not really playing for a win, but the white king doesn't have too many pieces in front of it. So Wesley, who has been the driver's seat these last few moves, he does still need to exercise some caution.
Really nice trick there. Poisoned rook right now. Wesley cannot take that rook. He drops back with his knight, though, trying to break the coordination between the black rooks. They're kind of protecting each other. I've said it before, X-ray vision. But one of them is hit now. That white knight attacking the rook in the center. This is where things could fall apart. If Magnus isn't careful, he's now down under 1 minute. Then his position could collapse instantly. But he's got to be careful now. He drops a rook back to hit the white queen. Really accurate move there to hold things together.
And it was a very critical one because there was no way to maintain connection of that other rook on the 4th rank to indirectly defend the a4 rook. So rook a5 hits the queen, not giving Wesley time to capture the rook on d4. But it feels like so many pieces are codependent right now, defending each other. And Magnus still needs to be careful because that queen can stay connected to that black knight on the board, creating threats.
Wesley needs to be careful because he's down to 20 seconds. This is not an easy position to figure out. I think if Wesley's given the opportunity, he'll try to trade those queens. Knight d2, hitting the queen on b3, forcing a knight trade here. And I think if all these pieces come off, Wesley with an a3 pawn, he still has maybe an outside shot to win the game. But Magnus, you know him. He knows endgames like the back of his hand. He'll be able to hold that.
And you can do that right now, right? You trade everything off on f3, give a check on d3, and I was going to say you win the a3 pawn. And then I just realized there's another rook on e1 that can step up on the 3rd rank at the end of all the trades. And actually, Wesley survives with the a3 pawn.
Wesley will be a pawn up. It's not the best pawn in the world, the white a3 pawn. Probably more of a weakness than a strength right now. But as you mentioned there, Tanya, if you don't win it, if the queens come off, rooks come off, suddenly that pawn could be priceless. So Wesley recaptures the knight right now. It's still level material. How does Magnus try to compensate for the pawn? The longer you're just a pawn down in this endgame, the more afraid you become. So will he keep the queens on? Magnus loves his endgames, but he can block this trade of queens by swinging black's rook over. No, he goes for the pure endgame. And, OK, it's only Wesley who can win now. It's a 2-result game. Magnus needs to show great defense to hold this game.
I love that move, though. By pushing his pawn, he wanted to push it one step further, and he's trying to kick the king back and also gain some key squares for his rook. So Wesley's king, that's going to be stuck over there on g2 or on that side of the board. And then how do you push your pawn? You'll need to line up both of the white rooks to the square, but after rook e3 is forced. And now without these rooks on the board, white's pawn structure, it's fractured, which makes it harder and harder to win.
Yeah, if the white king was slightly quicker, if the white king gained a few moves, rushed over to the queen side, kicked away the black rook as a blockader, white's a-pawn would run down the board, sprint down the board and win the game, promote. But I don't think he's going to be quick enough. Look at Magnus's king now incoming. White's pawn structure just too weak on the other flank. I think Magnus has estimated this one correctly. Wesley waits, a bit of an odd one there with his rook. And I think we'll see.
He has to be quick, though, David.
Ooh, indecision there from Wesley.
I think Wesley's a bit nervous that if his king goes to the queen side, pawn h4 for black could be a thorn in his side. And Magnus plays it anyway, but if that king were closer to the queen side, after rook takes h4 here, that h3 pawn would have been tender, but now the king comes to its defense. But Wesley does seem uncertain. He's bringing his king to 2 squares without letting go.
I think we're going to see a repetition right here, and it is being played out. And the first game of the first set of the championship fight ends in a draw. Wesley So gets in a 1b3. Magnus with some incredible middle game play. Jumping with that move with the knight. Knight a2. What a move that was. And eventually giving up a pawn, falling in a bit.